My name is Amanda, 29, and I have always been the overlooked middle child. Yesterday, I stopped by my parents' house unexpectedly and overheard my mother on the phone with my sister Natalie. You know Amanda's the dumb one, she said, but she does have that beautiful house. Those words cut deeper than any knife. Despite building my own business and buying my dream home at 27, my family still sees me as less than. Now they want to host Natalie's engagement party at my house without even asking properly. What they don't know is I've finally decided to stand up for myself. Before I start my story, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt underestimated by family. Growing up as the middle child between two academic superstars was never easy. My older sister Natalie, now 32, breezed through school with straight A's and eventually graduated from Harvard Law with honors. My younger brother Jason, 25, is currently in his third year of medical school, following our father's footsteps. Then there was me in the middle, struggling with reading and numbers in ways that baffled my achievement-oriented family. Why can't you just focus like your sister? My mother Karen would ask, her voice tinged with disappointment as she looked over another C on my report card. My father Thomas, a respected surgeon, would simply sigh and mutter something about trying harder. What none of us knew until I was 16 was that I had been battling undiagnosed dyslexia all those years. By the time we found out, the damage to my self-esteem was already done. The label had stuck. Amanda was not the academic one. Amanda was more suited for practical things. Amanda was trying her best, but school counselors suggested I focus on my strengths, which led me to discover my passion for interior design. I could visualize spaces in 3 dimensions effortlessly, seeing potential in rooms others couldn't. Colors, textures, and spatial relationships made intuitive sense to me in a way that words on a page never did. When I announced I wanted to study interior design after high school, my parents exchanged that look I knew too well. "Honey," my mother said gently, as if speaking to a child, "that's not a real career. It's more of a hobby, don't you think?" My father was more direct, "We're investing in education, not paying for you to learn how to arrange pillows." Despite their skepticism, I took out student loans and put myself through design school. While Natalie was making partner at her prestigious law firm and Jason was acing his MCAT, I was working 3 jobs, waiting tables, assisting an established designer on weekends, and building my portfolio whenever I could steal a moment. At 23, I launched my own interior design business. The first year was brutal. I worked from my tiny apartment, took any client who would hire me, and ate ramen more nights than I care to remember. My parents viewed it as Amanda's little project and waited for me to come to my senses. But then something unexpected happened. A small kitchen remodel I did was featured in a local magazine. That led to more clients, which led to bigger projects. By 25, I had a small studio and 2 employees. By 26, I was handling luxury home renovations and commercial projects. At 27, I bought my house. It's a gorgeous 1920s Tudor with original woodwork that I restored myself, set on a tree-lined street in one of the most desirable neighborhoods in town. I remembered the day I got the keys, calling my parents with excitement. "That's nice, dear," my mother said, quickly changing the subject to Natalie's recent court victory. At family gatherings, my career was treated as a curiosity at best. "Amanda plays with furniture for a living," my father would joke to his colleagues. When I tried explaining that I had just signed a contract to redesign the lobby of the city's most prestigious hotel, my mother interrupted to ask if anyone wanted more potatoes. The dynamic with Natalie was particularly complicated. On the surface, we maintained the appearance of close sisters. We texted regularly and met for coffee every few weeks. She would compliment my cute little business while humble bragging about her latest high-profile case. I would smile and congratulate her, swallowing the hurt. "You should be grateful Natalie includes you in her life," my mother once remarked. Successful people often don't have time for family. The implication was clear: I should be thankful that my accomplished sister made time for someone like me. The unspoken hierarchy in our family was firmly established: and I had accepted my place at the bottom of it for far too long. Last Tuesday started like any other day. I had an early client meeting, then spent the afternoon selecting fabric samples for a beach house renovation. On my way home, I remembered it was my father's birthday on Thursday, and I hadn't dropped off his gift yet. I decided to swing by my parents' house, thinking I could leave the carefully wrapped leather portfolio on his desk with a note. I used my key to let myself in, calling out a hello that went unanswered. The house seemed empty, but then I heard my mother's voice coming from the kitchen. She was on the phone, her tone animated in that way it gets when she's talking to Natalie. I was about to announce my presence when I heard my name. "You know Amanda's the dumb one," my mother said with a light laugh, "but she does have that beautiful house." I froze in the hallway, my father's gift clutched tightly against my chest. "I know, right?" my mother continued. "The place is perfect for entertaining. Those high ceilings in the living room and that gorgeous back patio. We could easily fit 80 people for your engagement party." There was a pause as she listened to whatever Natalie was saying. "Oh, she won't mind," my mother dismissed. "What else is she using that big house for anyway? Just her and all those throw pillows." She laughed again, that tinkling sound that always accompanied her most cutting remarks. "I'll talk to her about it at family dinner on Thursday, but consider it done. With your schedule and the wedding planning, the last thing you need to worry about is throwing your own engagement party. We'll handle everything. Amanda can finally contribute something meaningful to this family." The words hit me like physical blows. Dumb one. What else is she using that house for? Finally contribute something meaningful. I backed away silently, careful not to make a sound. I placed my father's gift on the console table in the foyer and slipped out the front door, closing it softly behind me. In my car, the tears came hot and fast. I sat in my parents' driveway, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to catch my breath. The afternoon sun felt suddenly too bright, too exposing. Had they always seen me this way? Had every achievement, every milestone I'd reached on my own been dismissed so completely? And now they wanted to use my home, the tangible symbol of my success, while continuing to belittle me? I drove home in a daze, my mind replaying years of subtle put-downs and dismissive comments. The time my mother introduced Natalie as our daughter, the lawyer, and me as our other daughter. The Christmas my father gave Natalie a first edition book by her favorite author and Jason an expensive stethoscope, while I received a generic scarf from the mall. The countless family dinners where my input was ignored or talked over. When I got home, I poured myself a glass of wine and called my best friend Lily. We had met in design school and remained close, even as her career took her to New York. "They've always been like this, Lily," I said after recounting what I'd overheard. "I just never wanted to believe it was this bad." "Amanda, listen to me," Lily's voice was firm through the speakerphone. "This is emotional abuse. You need to confront them." "And say what?" "Hey Mom, I heard you call me the dumb one foot." "Yes, exactly that. Stop protecting people who hurt you." I sighed, swirling the wine in my glass. "Let me see what happens at dinner on Thursday. Maybe they'll actually ask about using my house instead of just informing me." "And if they don't?" Lily pressed. "Then I'll decide what to do next." As I hung up, I stared around at my beautiful home, the space I had created with my own vision, paid for with my own success, a physical manifestation of everything I had accomplished despite my family's lack of faith in me. For the first time, I wondered if perhaps I had been protecting myself by keeping them at arm's length from this part of my life. And now they wanted to invade it. Thursday evening arrived with an unseasonable chill in the air. I dressed carefully in a navy blue dress I had designed myself, paired with my grandmother's pearl earrings, the only family heirloom that had come to me instead of Natalie. I applied my makeup with precision, determined to present the most polished version of myself. My parents' home was ablaze with lights when I arrived. I could see my brother's car already parked in the driveway, alongside an unfamiliar Audi that I assumed belonged to Natalie's boyfriend James. I had met him only twice before, a corporate attorney with careful eyes and a reserved smile. There she is, my mother trilled as I walked through the door. She air-kissed me on both cheeks, careful not to smudge her lipstick. We were just about to open the champagne. The living room was decorated with silver and gold balloons, and a congratulations banner hung across the fireplace mantel. Natalie sat on the sofa, her hand intertwined with James's, a brilliant diamond catching the light every time she moved. "Amanda," she squealed, jumping up to embrace me. "Look." She thrust her left hand toward my face, the diamond nearly blinding me. "James proposed last night. We're getting married." I summoned my best smile. "That's wonderful. Congratulations to you both." For the next 20 minutes, I dutifully listened to the proposal story, how James had arranged a private dinner at the restaurant where they'd had their first date, how he'd gotten down on one knee just as dessert was being served, how Natalie had been totally surprised despite having sent him photos of her preferred ring styles months ago. My father poured champagne for everyone, raising his glass in a toast. "To Natalie and James, may your lives together be as exceptional as you both are." I sipped my champagne, trying to ignore the familiar sting of being invisible in my own family. Dinner was my mother's specialty, roast lamb with rosemary potatoes. As we ate, the conversation revolved entirely around Natalie's upcoming nuptials. They had already set a date, just 6 months away at the Plaza Hotel in New York. "Speaking of celebrations," my mother said, setting down her fork and looking directly at me. "We need to discuss the engagement party." My stomach tightened. Here it came. "We're thinking the first weekend in June," she continued. "That gives us about a month to plan. We've already started working on the guest list, about 80 people including family, close friends, and some important colleagues of both James and Natalie." I waited for the question. For any acknowledgement that what they were about to ask required my permission. Instead, my mother turned to my father. "Thomas, we should talk to that caterer who did the hospital fundraiser last year. The food was divine." "Wait," I interrupted. "Are you talking about having this party at my house?" My mother looked at me with mild surprise, as if I'd asked something obvious. "Well, of course, dear. Where else would we have it? Your place is perfect for entertaining. Don't you think you should have asked me first?" I said, trying to keep my voice level. Natalie laughed. "Oh, Amanda, don't be silly. It's not like you host a lot of parties. Your house is always so empty. We assumed you'd be delighted to help your sister celebrate," my father added, his tone suggesting I was being difficult. "We'll handle everything," my mother assured me, completely missing the point. "The catering, decorations, staff. All you need to do is clean up a bit beforehand." "Clean up?" I repeated, feeling heat rise to my cheeks. "You know, all your fabric samples and design boards," Natalie waved her hand dismissively. "And maybe store away some of those art pieces that are a bit unusual. We want the space to look cohesive." My art collection. Carefully curated pieces from local artists, each selected with thought and intention, was now being deemed unsuitable for their event. "I'm thinking a soft golden cream theme," my mother continued, oblivious to my growing anger. "It will complement your living room surprisingly well. James and I want to stop by this weekend to discuss the layout," Natalie added. "I'm thinking we'll need to move some furniture to create better flow." I sat there, fork suspended above my plate, as they discussed my home as if it were a blank canvas for their vision, not the personal space I had created for myself. "The guest bathroom might need some attention," my mother mused. "It's a bit creative without wallpaper." The wallpaper, a custom-designed pattern I had created myself, featuring subtle architectural elements from historical buildings around our city, was one of my proudest personal touches. "And we'll need to discuss parking. The street can get congested," my father added. Throughout this exchange, James remained mostly silent, though I caught him glancing at me with what seemed like discomfort. At one point, when Natalie suggested removing my bookshelf to make room for the gift table, I saw him frown slightly. "Is that really necessary?" he asked quietly, the first time he'd spoken up. trust me, Natalie patted his hand. My sister doesn't actually read those books. They're just decorative. The insult stung all the more for being untrue. My bookshelf was filled with design references, historical architecture texts, and novels I treasured. But of course, Natalie wouldn't know that. She had never bothered to look. The evening continued in this vein, with my family planning an elaborate event in my home without any real input from me. By the time dessert was served, my father's birthday cake, which had become a footnote to Natalie's engagement celebration, I felt hollow with a mixture of hurt and resignation. As they were leaving, my mother hugged me tightly. "This means so much to your sister," she whispered. "I knew we could count on you." I drove home in silence, the weight of my family's expectations and presumptions pressing down on me. When I walked into my house, my sanctuary, I saw it differently, imagining it invaded by 80 guests who would have no idea that the person who created this beautiful space was considered the dumb one by her own family. I sank onto my sofa, buried my face in my hands, and finally allowed myself to cry. The tears came in waves, releasing years of pent-up hurt and frustration. My beautiful home, the physical manifestation of my success despite my family's lack of faith in me, now felt violated before the first guest had even arrived. I looked around at the space I had created, the perfectly balanced color palette, the mix of antique and contemporary furniture, the custom millwork I had designed for the built-in bookshelves. All of it dismissed as a convenient backdrop for Natalie's celebration. When the tears finally subsided, I picked up my phone and called Lily. "They didn't even ask," I said when she answered. "They informed me. As if my home is community property and I'm the designated caretaker." "What did you say?" Lily asked. "Nothing. I just sat there like I always do, taking it." "Amanda," Lily's voice was gentle but firm. "This has to stop. You know that, right? You're successful, talented, and brilliant. The fact that your family can't see that is their failing, not yours." "I know that logically," I admitted. "But emotionally? It's like I'm 10 years old again, being told I'll never measure up." "Have you ever considered therapy?" Lily asked. "A friend of mine sees this amazing therapist, Dr. Matthews. She specializes in family dynamics." The suggestion caught me off guard. I had always viewed therapy as something for people with real problems, not someone like me with a successful career and a beautiful home. "Do you think I need therapy?" I asked, suddenly unsure. "I think you deserve to be happy and confident in who you are," Lily replied. "And if your family is undermining that, then yes, talking to someone might help." After we hung up, I sat in silence for a long time, turning the idea over in my mind. Finally, I searched for Dr. Matthews online and sent an email requesting an emergency appointment. To my surprise, she responded within the hour, offering to see me the following morning. Dr. Matthews's office was warm and inviting, with plants on every surface and art that reminded me of my own collection. She was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a direct manner that I appreciated immediately. "Tell me why you're here, Amanda," she said after we'd exchanged pleasantries. For the next hour, I poured out my story. The childhood of feeling less than, the undiagnosed dyslexia, the years of dismissal and subtle put-downs, and finally, the overheard conversation and the presumptuous party planning. "What strikes me," Dr. Matthews said when I finished, "is how your family has created a narrative about you that has nothing to do with who you actually are. And to some extent, you've internalized that narrative." "What do you mean?" "You've built this successful business and this beautiful home, yet part of you still believes you're the dumb one. That's why you didn't immediately object when they planned this party without your permission. You're still seeking their approval." Her words hit me with uncomfortable precision. "But they're my family," I said weakly. "Yes, and you love them. But loving someone doesn't mean allowing them to treat you with disrespect. Boundaries aren't punishments, they're necessary elements of healthy relationships. So what do I do about this party?" Dr. Matthews leaned forward slightly. "What do you want to do?" The question caught me off guard. What did I want? I had spent so many years accommodating others, particularly my family, that I rarely asked myself that question. I don't want to be the villain who ruins Natalie's engagement celebration, I said slowly. But I also don't want to be used and taken for granted anymore. Those aren't the only two options, Dr. Matthews pointed out. There's a middle ground where you assert your boundaries while still being generous on your own terms. As our session continued, a plan began to form in my mind. Not a vindictive one, but one that would allow me to maintain my dignity while still supporting my sister's celebration, but on my terms. After leaving Dr. Matthews's office, I felt lighter than I had in years. I had a direction now, a way to address the situation that wouldn't involve either complete capitulation or dramatic confrontation. My phone rang as I was driving home. It was Jason, my younger brother. This was unusual, though we got along well enough. We rarely spoke outside of family gatherings. "Hey," I answered, curious about the unexpected call. "Amanda," he said, his voice low as if he was trying not to be overheard. "I wanted to check on you after last night. That was pretty rough." I was so surprised by his concern that I nearly missed a stop sign. "You noticed?" Of course I noticed. The whole thing was uncomfortable. Using your house without asking? Mom and Natalie talking about rearranging your furniture and taking down your art? It was inappropriate. This was unprecedented. Jason had never before acknowledged the way our family treated me. "Thanks for saying that," I said, feeling a surprising rush of emotion. "I honestly thought I was overreacting." "You weren't," he assured me. "And, there's something else. I've heard Mom make comments like that before." "Like what?" "The dumb one thing," he admitted reluctantly. I should have said something, but... "But what?" "It's easier to stay in their good graces," he said, his voice tinged with shame. "I'm not proud of it." The admission was both painful and validating. I wasn't imagining things. The family dynamic was exactly as I perceived it. "What are you going to do about the party?" Jason asked. "I'm working on a plan," I told him. "I'm not going to just roll over this time." "Good," he said simply. "It's about time." As I hung up, I felt a new sense of confidence building. With Lily's support, Dr. Matthews's guidance, and now the unexpected alliance with Jason, I was ready to take a stand. I spent the evening drafting a document on my computer, carefully considering every word. When I finally went to bed, I felt prepared for what would come next. For the first time in my life, I was going to set clear boundaries with my family, and I would do it in a language they couldn't dismiss or talk over. In writing, with terms and conditions spelled out clearly. The Amanda who always acquiesced was gone. In her place was a woman who knew her worth and was ready to claim it. I suggested meeting my mother and Natalie for coffee at a neutral location, a quiet cafe downtown that I knew would provide both privacy and the public setting I wanted. They arrived together, chatting animatedly about wedding plans. When they spotted me at a corner table, they waved and made their way over, completely unaware of what was coming. "Amanda, darling," my mother said, kissing my cheek. "I'm so glad you suggested this. We have so much to discuss about the party." "I've been making lists all morning," Natalie added, pulling out her phone. "I've already contacted a few caterers for quotes." I waited until they had settled in with their lattes before speaking. "Yes, we do have things to discuss," I said calmly, reaching into my bag and pulling out 3 copies of the document I had prepared. "I've drawn up some parameters for using my home as your event venue." I slid a copy in front of each of them, keeping the third for myself. "You'll see I've outlined everything clearly. The rental fee, insurance requirements, timeline for access, and restrictions regarding alterations to my home." They stared at the papers, then at me, identical expressions of shock on their faces. "Rental fee?" my mother finally sputtered. "What are you talking about?" $3,500, I replied evenly. "That's actually below market rate for a venue of my home's size and caliber in that neighborhood." I checked with 3 event planners to confirm. Natalie's face flushed red. You expect us to pay you to host my engagement party? Are you serious? I'm completely serious, I maintained my calm demeanor. You're planning to use my home as an event venue for 80 people. That comes with costs, utilities, wear and tear, liability. Not to mention my time and the disruption to my life. But we're family, my mother protested, her voice rising. Family doesn't charge family. Family asks permission before planning a major event in someone else's home, I countered. Family doesn't assume they can rearrange furniture, take down artwork, and criticize decor without consultation. We were just trying to help plan. Natalie insisted. No, you were taking over. There's a difference. I took a deep breath. And family doesn't refer to another family member as the dumb one. The words hung in the air between us. My mother's face went pale. What are you talking about? She asked, but her eyes betrayed her. I stopped by the house on Tuesday to drop off Dad's birthday gift, I explained. I overheard your phone conversation with Natalie. You called me the dumb one, but mentioned that at least I have a nice house you could use. My mother's hand flew to her throat. Amanda, Don't, I cut her off. Don't try to explain it away or tell me I misunderstood. I heard you clearly. Natalie glanced between us, looking uncomfortable. Mom, you didn't really say that, did you? My mother's silence was answer enough. Look, I continued, I'm not trying to ruin your engagement celebration. I'm willing to host the party, but only on these terms. I tapped the contract. This is non-negotiable. This is ridiculous, Natalie snapped, pushing away from the table. We'll find another venue. Fine, I said with a shrug. That's your choice. My mother grabbed my hand. Amanda, please be reasonable. This party means so much to your sister, and we've already started planning. We can't possibly find another suitable venue on such short notice. These are my terms, I repeated. I deserve respect, Mom. I won't accept less anymore. Natalie stormed out of the cafe, leaving my mother and me alone at the table. I don't understand where this is coming from, my mother said, her voice trembling. You've never been like this before. I've never stood up for myself before, I corrected her. There's a difference. She gathered her purse and Natalie's abandoned coffee. Your father will be hearing about this. I'm sure he will. As predicted, my father called that evening. His voice had that authoritative tone he used when he expected immediate compliance. Amanda, what's this nonsense about charging for the engagement party? He demanded without preamble. It's not nonsense, Dad. It's a reasonable business arrangement. Business arrangement? This is family. Yes, and in this family, I've always been treated as less than. That stops now. I could almost hear him pacing through the phone. Your mother is upset. Natalie is in tears. Is that what you wanted? What I want is to be treated with respect, I said firmly. I'm a successful business owner. I bought my house entirely on my own. I built a life I'm proud of, despite all of you treating me like I'm somehow deficient. No one thinks you're deficient, he protested weakly. Mom literally called me the dumb one, Dad. I heard her. There was a long pause. She shouldn't have said that, he finally admitted. No, she shouldn't have. Just like you shouldn't have introduced me as our other daughter at the hospital fundraiser last year. Just like Natalie shouldn't assume she can rearrange my home and criticize my decor. Another silence stretched between us. The contract is excessive, he finally said, his tone less combative. The contract ensures we all understand the expectations. I'm not trying to punish anyone, Dad. I'm establishing boundaries. After we hung up, I waited. I knew my family well enough to predict what would happen next. They would look for alternatives, realize how limited their options were on short notice, and eventually, grudgingly, return to my offer. 3 days later, Natalie called. We've looked at 8 venues, she said without greeting. Nothing suitable is available on our date. I'm sorry to hear that, I replied, refusing to make this easier for her. She sighed heavily. So we're back to your house. On the terms I outlined. Yes, fine, she snapped. Dad will transfer the money tomorrow. But I want it noted that I think this is selfish and inappropriate. Noted, I said calmly. I'll email you a copy of the signed contract tomorrow. After hanging up, I didn't feel the triumph I had expected. Instead, I felt a complex mixture of relief, sadness, and something else, a growing sense of strength. For the first time in my life, I had stood my ground with my family, and while the outcome wasn't perfect, it was progress. The family tension was at an all-time high, but I found myself strangely at peace. As Dr. Matthews had told me in our follow-up session, discomfort is often a sign of growth, for you and potentially for your family, too. I could only hope she was right. 3 days after finalizing the contract with my family, I was working late in my home office when my doorbell rang. It was nearly 9 p.m., not a typical time for visitors. When I checked the security camera, I was surprised to see James, Natalie's fiancé, standing on my porch, hands in his pockets, looking distinctly uncomfortable. I hesitated before opening the door. James and I had barely exchanged more than pleasantries at family gatherings. What could he possibly want? James, I greeted him, trying to mask my surprise. Is everything okay? Hi, Amanda, he shifted his weight from one foot to the other. I'm sorry to drop by unannounced. I was hoping we could talk, if you have a few minutes? I stepped back to let him in, my curiosity overriding my caution. He followed me to the living room, glancing around appreciatively at my home. This place is even more impressive than I remembered, he commented. The way you've restored the original features while making it feel contemporary, it's remarkable. The compliment, so specific and genuine, caught me off guard. Thank you, I said, gesturing for him to take a seat. Can I get you anything to drink? Just water, thanks. When I returned with 2 glasses of water, he was examining my bookshelf, the one Natalie had dismissed as decorative. You have Witold Rybczynski's entire collection, he noted. I loved home and the most beautiful house in the world. I nearly dropped the glasses. You've read Rybczynski? He smiled slightly. Architecture and design have always been interests of mine. My father was a contractor, I grew up on construction sites. I didn't know that, I said, realizing how little I knew about the man my sister was planning to marry. James accepted the water and sat down, looking directly at me. Amanda, I came here to apologize. For what? For not speaking up at the dinner when your family was discussing using your home without properly asking. For sitting silently while they criticized your decor and planned to rearrange your furniture. It was inappropriate, and I should have said something. His candor left me momentarily speechless. I've noticed how they treat you, he continued quietly. It's not right. You're clearly talented and successful, but they talk to you like you're somehow less. Why are you telling me this? I asked, suspicion creeping in. Did Natalie send you to smooth things over so I'll drop the contract? No, he said firmly. Natalie doesn't know I'm here. In fact, she'd probably be furious if she knew. Then why? Because I care about Natalie, and I'm marrying into this family, but I'm uncomfortable with the dynamics I'm witnessing. He leaned forward, hands clasped. The way they dismiss you and your accomplishments reminds me too much of how my mother was treated by her family. I watched it damage her for years. I studied his face, looking for signs of insincerity but finding none. I appreciate the apology, but it doesn't change the situation. I know. I'm not asking you to change your terms. Actually, I think your boundary setting is healthy and long overdue. Now I was genuinely confused. You're siding with me over your fiancé? I'm not taking sides, he clarified. I'm acknowledging something that seems wrong and that no one else is willing to address. Natalie has many wonderful qualities, but her treatment of you isn't one of them. He hesitated, then continued more softly. She's not always like that, you know. When it's just us, she's kind and thoughtful. But something changes when she's around your parents, like she's performing for their approval. The observation was so accurate it made my chest tighten. We all perform for their approval, I admitted. Some of us just stopped getting it a long time ago. James nodded, understanding. Can I tell you something in confidence? Of course. Natalie talks about you more than you might think. She has every magazine feature of your work saved. She follows your business Instagram account under a different name. What? I couldn't hide my shock. Why would she do that? I think, he said carefully, she's jealous of you. Jealous? Of me? That's absurd. She's the golden child, Harvard Law, partner at a prestigious firm, marrying the right kind of guy. I gestured between us, indicating the obvious comparison. And yet, James countered, you created this. He gestured around my beautiful home. You built something entirely your own, without their help or approval. Do you know what Natalie said when she first saw your house? She did this all by herself. No one helped her. He paused. There was awe in her voice, Amanda. And envy. I sat back, trying to absorb this revelation. Could it possibly be true? Had Natalie, whom I'd always seen as my superior in our family hierarchy, actually envied me? She's never given any indication of feeling that way, I said skeptically. People often criticize what they secretly admire, James observed. Especially when they feel insecure. We talked for another hour, and a different picture of my sister began to emerge. According to James, Natalie felt trapped by our parents' expectations, the perfect daughter who couldn't risk disappointing them by admitting she hated corporate law and dreamed of teaching instead. Every achievement was another bar raised, another expectation to meet. She doesn't know how to break free of their expectations the way you have, James explained. So she resents you for having what she wants, independence. As our conversation wound down, James stood to leave. I should go. Natalie thinks I'm working late. At the door, he turned back to me. What are you planning to do about the artwork and furniture they want to move for the party? I'm not moving anything, I said firmly. My home is not a blank canvas for their vision. He smiled. Good. It's perfect as it is. He hesitated, then added, I'd like us to be friends, Amanda. Real friends, not just polite in-laws. After he left, I sat in my living room, looking at my home through new eyes. For the first time, I considered that perhaps my relationship with Natalie wasn't as simple as I'd always believed. If James was right, beneath her perfect exterior was someone as wounded by our family dynamics as I was, just in a different way. The revelation didn't excuse her behavior, but it did make me see her as more human, more complex than the perfect sister I'd resented for so long. I picked up my phone and texted Dr. Matthews, requesting another session. This unexpected conversation with James had opened up possibilities I needed to explore, both for the upcoming party and for my long-term relationship with my family. As I prepared for bed that night, I realized that James had given me something invaluable, a new perspective on a family dynamic I had accepted as unchangeable for far too long. Perhaps there was hope for healing after all, though not in the way I had imagined. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from James, "Thanks for talking last night. Whatever happens with the party, I hope this can be a new beginning for all of us." I stared at the message for a long time before replying, "Me too." With the contract signed and the payment transferred to my account, I hired Vanessa Pearson, one of the city's top event planners. Rather than allowing my mother and Natalie to take over my home, I would maintain control while still ensuring the party was beautiful and memorable. "I want to create something special," I explained to Vanessa during our first meeting. "But I need to maintain boundaries." "Completely understandable," she assured me. "It's still your home, even when it's being used as a venue." I gave Vanessa a tour, pointing out areas that were off-limits, my office and bedroom, and discussing how to arrange the flow of guests through the main living spaces and out to the back patio and garden. "Your home is stunning," she commented, noting the original crown moldings I'd painstakingly restored and the custom built-ins I'd designed. "We won't need to change much at all." "That's the point," I said with a smile. "I want people to see it as it is, as I created it." Together, we developed a plan that would showcase my home while accommodating the party's needs. The living room would remain largely as it was, with the addition of high cocktail tables around the perimeter. The dining room would house the catering station. The back patio would feature additional seating and a bar. "What about your artwork?" Vanessa asked, indicating the collection my mother and Natalie had deemed unsuitable. "It stays exactly where it is," I said firmly. She nodded approvingly. "It should. These pieces are extraordinary." When I shared the plans with my mother and Natalie during a tense meeting at my home, their reactions were predictably mixed. "But we discussed moving the sofa to create more space," my mother protested. "The sofa stays," I replied calmly. "Vanessa has designed the layout to work with the existing furniture." Natalie frowned at the event plan Vanessa had created. "What about the gift table? And where will the engagement photo display go?" "The gift table will be in the alcove by the front windows," I explained. "As for the photo display, Vanessa has a beautiful idea for that." Vanessa stepped in smoothly. "We're thinking of creating a gallery wall along the hallway using removable mounting systems. It won't damage the walls, and it will create a natural pathway guiding guests from the front of the house to the back patio." My mother looked skeptical but didn't argue further. As they were leaving, Natalie lingered behind. "You've gone to a lot of trouble," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "It's your engagement party," I replied. "Of course I want it to be special." She nodded, seeming about to say something more, but then just turned and followed our mother to the car. As the party date approached, my phone filled with messages from relatives and family friends, all expressing excitement about seeing my house for the first time. "I've heard it's absolutely gorgeous," wrote my Aunt Linda. "So looking forward to finally seeing your place," texted my cousin Brian. It struck me then that despite owning this home for 2 years, I had never hosted my extended family here. Perhaps part of me had been protecting this space, the tangible evidence of my success, from the family that had so often diminished me. 2 days before the party, Dr. Matthews and I had another session. "How are you feeling about Saturday?" she asked. "Nervous," I admitted. "It's the first time many of them will see my home. And after everything that's happened." "What's the worst that could happen?" she prompted. I considered this. They could criticize everything. They could still see me as the dumb one despite all evidence to the contrary. And if they do? Then nothing's changed, I realized. But I have. I've set boundaries. I've stood up for myself. That matters, regardless of their reactions. She smiled warmly. Exactly. The night before the party, I walked through my home, making final assessments. The house had never looked better. Vanessa's team had added subtle touches that enhanced without overwhelming, arrangements of cream and gold flowers, soft lighting that highlighted architectural details, elegant signage directing guests to different areas. I paused before the custom engagement gift I had designed for Natalie and James. A detailed architectural rendering of the first home they had toured together, beautifully framed in burnished gold. It was the perfect showcase of my talents, a gift that no one else could have created. Whether they would appreciate its significance remained to be seen. As I prepared for bed, my phone buzzed with a text from James. "Just wanted to say thank you for everything you're doing. It means more than you know." For the first time since this whole situation began, I felt a glimmer of hope that tomorrow might mark not just Natalie's engagement celebration, but the beginning of a new chapter for our family. The morning of the party dawned bright and clear, a perfect early summer day. I had barely slept, my mind racing with last-minute details and anxiety about the evening ahead. By 10 a.m., Vanessa and her team had arrived to begin the final preparations. Everything is on schedule, she assured me as we walked through the house. The caterers arrive at 3, bartenders at 4, and we'll be completely ready by 5:30. The first guests are expected at 6. I retreated to my bedroom, the one area of the house that would remain private, to prepare myself. I chose my outfit carefully, a deep blue silk dress that complemented my eyes, paired with the vintage silver bracelet that had been my graduation gift to myself. My hair and makeup I kept elegant but understated. This wasn't my celebration, after all. At precisely 5:45 p.m., the doorbell rang. I opened it to find my parents on the doorstep, my mother resplendent in a beaded gown, my father distinguished in his best suit. "Amanda," my mother gasped, looking past me into the transformed space. It's absolutely stunning." I stepped back to let them enter, accepting their compliments with a polite smile. "Vanessa did a wonderful job," I said, deliberately giving credit to the professional I had hired. "Yes, but this is your home," my father said, his tone unusually warm. "You've created something truly special here." Before I could respond, the doorbell rang again. And again. Soon, the house was filling with guests, aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends, colleagues of both Natalie and James. I circulated among them, accepting compliments on my home with grace. "I had no idea you were so talented, dear," my great-aunt Mildred said, patting my arm. "This place is absolutely magnificent." "Your business must be doing very well," commented my father's colleague Dr. Stevens. "This neighborhood is quite exclusive." Again and again, I heard variations of the same surprise, that I, the overlooked middle child, had created something so impressive. At 6:30, Natalie and James made their grand entrance. My sister was radiant in a champagne-colored dress, her hair swept up to showcase the diamond earrings that matched her engagement ring. James looked handsome in a charcoal suit, his eyes immediately finding mine across the room. He gave me a small, private smile that conveyed volumes. My mother clinked her glass, calling for attention. "We're so thrilled to welcome you all to celebrate Natalie and James's engagement," she began, standing on the small platform Vanessa had set up in the living room. "And we're especially grateful to Amanda for opening her beautiful home for this special occasion." She gestured toward me, and suddenly all eyes were on me. Many of you may not know that Amanda designed this entire space herself. Every detail, from the restored woodwork to the custom built-ins, was her vision. She's quite talented, our Amanda. I nearly dropped my champagne glass. In all my years, I had never heard my mother speak about my work with such specific praise. As the evening progressed, I found myself repeatedly drawn into conversations about my design business. Guests wanted to know about my process, my clients, my vision. 3 people asked for my business card. My Aunt Patricia wanted to discuss renovating her kitchen. Dr. Stevens's wife was interested in redesigning their vacation home. "You've been holding out on us," my cousin Rachel said, linking her arm through mine. "All these years, and we had no idea you were so successful." "It wasn't a secret," I replied mildly. "Just not a topic of conversation at family gatherings." Around 8 o'clock, my father called for everyone's attention again. It was time for the formal engagement toast. He stood on the platform, champagne glass raised. "When Natalie was born," he began, "Karen and I knew she was special. She's always been our achiever, our star." Typical start, I thought, taking a small sip of my champagne. "Then came Amanda," he continued, and I felt myself tense. Our middle child, who saw the world differently from the rest of us. Here it comes, I thought, bracing myself for the familiar diminishment. "What we didn't understand then," my father said, his voice taking on an unexpected emotional quality, "was that seeing the world differently isn't a deficit, it's a gift." While we pushed Amanda toward traditional academics, her mind was creating and envisioning beautiful spaces like the one we're standing in tonight. I felt my breath catch. Around me, guests nodded appreciatively, looking around at my home. And then Jason, our youngest, who combines his sister's best qualities, Natalie's analytical mind and Amanda's creative vision. He raised his glass higher. Tonight, we celebrate Natalie and James's engagement, but I'd also like to acknowledge something else: the remarkable adults all our children have become, each successful in their own unique way. He turned to face me directly. Amanda, thank you for sharing your beautiful home with us tonight. It's a testament to your talent and determination. Tears pricked at my eyes as applause filled the room. This was the acknowledgement I had craved for so long: specific, public recognition of my achievements on my own terms. As the clapping subsided, Natalie stepped onto the platform. I'd like to say something too, she announced, her voice slightly unsteady. James and I are so grateful to everyone for coming tonight, she began formally. And especially to my sister for hosting us in her incredible home. She turned toward me, her expression uncharacteristically vulnerable. Amanda, growing up with you wasn't always easy, she said, and the room grew quiet. You were always so different from me, so creative and independent. I was good at following rules and meeting expectations, but you. She paused, you created your own path when none was provided for you. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was not the typical light-hearted engagement speech guests had expected. The truth is, Natalie continued, her voice catching, I've always been a little jealous of you. Gasps and whispered comments filled the room. My mother's face registered shock. James, standing to the side, looked unsurprised but concerned. You had the courage to pursue what you loved, even when it wasn't what our parents expected, Natalie said. You built this amazing business and this beautiful home entirely on your own terms. Meanwhile, I've spent my life doing what was expected of me, and only recently have I begun to question if that's really what I want. She looked at James, who nodded encouragingly. The truth is, she continued, I don't love being a corporate attorney. I never have. What I really want to do is teach law to students who might not otherwise have access to quality education. My mother clutched my father's arm, her expression a mixture of confusion and dismay. And I've been too afraid to admit that, Natalie said, because I didn't want to disappoint anyone. But seeing Amanda succeed on her own terms has made me realize that maybe I can too. She turned back to the stunned crowd. So while we're celebrating new beginnings tonight, I want to acknowledge the sister who's inspired me more than she knows. The room erupted in uncomfortable applause as Natalie stepped down from the platform, making her way directly to me. When she reached me, her eyes were filled with tears. I'm sorry, she whispered, pulling me into a hug. For everything. For not standing up for you. For being jealous instead of proud. Before I could respond, my mother pushed her way through the crowd toward us, her face flushed. Natalie, what was that? She hissed. This is hardly the time or place for such revelations. It's exactly the time and place, Natalie countered. In Amanda's home, where she's succeeded despite our lack of support. How dare you? My mother's voice rose slightly. Everything we've done has been to support you girls. No, I interjected quietly but firmly. Everything you've done has been to support a specific vision of success, one that worked for Natalie but not for me. Guests were beginning to take notice of our tense exchange. James appeared at Natalie's side, placing a protective hand on her back. Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere private, my father suggested, glancing nervously at the onlookers. No, I said, surprising myself with my firmness. I'm done with private conversations where nothing changes. Let's be honest for once. My mother's face hardened. Amanda, you're making a scene at your sister's engagement party. Actually, James interjected calmly, I think this is long overdue. My father looked at him in surprise. You knew about Natalie's dissatisfaction? Of course he knew, Natalie said. He's the person I can actually be honest with. My mother's composure finally cracked. I don't understand what's happening, she said, her voice breaking. Everything was perfect, and now both of you are saying we've somehow failed you? Not failed, I clarified, softer now. Just never really seen us for who we are instead of who you wanted us to be. As the guests mingled elsewhere, pretending not to notice our family drama, the five of us, my parents, Natalie, James, and I moved to a quieter corner of the living room. I called you the dumb one, my mother admitted, tears in her eyes. I can't take that back. But you have to understand, Amanda, we were worried about you. You struggled so much in school, and then you chose this career that seemed so uncertain. But I succeeded, I pointed out. And even after I did, you still saw me as less than. We were wrong, my father said, the admission clearly difficult for him. Your mother and I were wrong. We measured success so narrowly that we failed to appreciate what you've accomplished. Natalie took my hand. And I was so busy trying to be perfect that I resented you for finding your own way. I'm sorry, Amanda. I looked at my family, really looked at them. For the first time, I saw beyond our established roles to the flawed, complex humans beneath. My perfectionist sister who secretly hated her job. My achievement-oriented parents who couldn't understand a path different from the one they'd planned. And me, the middle child who had finally found her voice. I'm sorry too, I said. For keeping you at arm's length. For not inviting you into my life more. This house, it became my sanctuary from feeling judged and diminished. I wanted to protect it from all of you. And now, my father asked quietly. Now, I said, looking around at my beautiful home filled with people celebrating love and new beginnings, maybe it can be a place where we start to build something better. Something more honest. As the party wound down and guests began to depart, my mother lingered behind, waiting until we were alone. Your father and I would like to come for dinner next week, she said hesitantly. Just to talk. If that's all right with you. I'd like that, I replied. After everyone had gone and the catering staff had cleaned up, I walked through my quiet house, reflecting on the evening's unexpected turns. My phone buzzed with a text from Lily. How did it go? Better than I could have imagined, I replied. I'll call you tomorrow with details. I paused in my living room, looking at the space that had witnessed such transformation tonight, not just in its function as a party venue, but in what it represented. No longer a refuge from my family, but perhaps the beginning of a bridge back to them on new and healthier terms. Dr. Matthews had been right. Boundaries weren't about pushing people away. They were about creating space for authentic relationships to grow. Standing up for myself hadn't destroyed my family, it had created the possibility for something more genuine to emerge from the ruins of our old patterns. As I prepared for bed, I spotted the envelope James had pressed into my hand as he and Natalie were leaving. Inside was a card with a simple message: thank you for giving Natalie the courage to be honest. Your sister admires you more than you know. Welcome to the family, for real this time. I smiled, placing the card on my nightstand. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, no doubt. Years of family dynamics couldn't be resolved in a single evening. But for the first time, I felt hopeful that we could build something better together, a family where each of us could be seen and valued for who we truly were. Have you ever had to stand up to your family to be seen for who you truly are? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more true family stories. Remember, sometimes setting boundaries isn't about pushing people away, it's about creating space for more authentic relationships. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it gives courage to anyone struggling to find their voice in their family.